How many of you guys have done something stupid in your life? Raise your hand. How many of you guys have done it this morning? Those are my people. Okay. So, guess what? If you make a mistake and you do stupid shit, that does not define who you are. Take accountability, fix it, own it, move on. Do not label yourself. The guy that's gonna hop on right now spent 12 years not in jail, but in prison. This dude could have labeled himself, right? Convict, woe is me, minimum wage job, I was in jail, I missed out on everything, wah, 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 wah. Or you can be a badass and write a book that all my VIPs got today. Or you can write a podcast and have some of the most influential people on planet Earth on your podcast and start a coaching program to help other people that have been in the shitter, get them out and let them know that your day is not over. Yeah. Can I get a hell yeah? Yeah. Give it up for my boy, Chappy! Let's go!
Statements after the castle. Hey, JR, ain't it a blessing? We made it out of Lansing after all that happened. After Michigan State, after Hubbard, when our mans told on us, the bands they took from us.
What the fuck is up?
With the money long as 6 mile, brick mile, knock your down, pick her up, knock her back down, pull her tracks out. Yes, I slammed her.
Dude, thank you guys for being here. Who has listened to my podcast or read my book already? All right, we got a decent showing right there. All right, first of all, my name is Peter Meyerhoff. Nickname is Chappy. I just want to inspire you guys. I'm going to tell you my whole life story, how I absolutely fucking trashed my life and turned it around and then became a multimillionaire when I got out of prison. So I'm from Ahwatukee right here. Small little nice suburb town. Did not get in no trouble. Had a great family. Both parents were together. I grew up on a cul-de-sac with probably 15 kids. Never touched a video game my entire childhood. Played sports in the streets all day long. I had the world in the palm of my hands as a kid. I was in a movie. I had a modeling agent at like 13. I was the top athlete, most popular kid in school, is what I use for networking now. And like I said, I had it all. My parents split when I was 10 years old, and it didn't really affect me. You know, I grew up broke as shit. You know, I was raised in a studio apartment, and I shared a bed with my mom until I was like 15 or 16 years old. My brother shared the other queen bed, and like we literally lived in a little studio-ass apartment. My life changed when I got to high school. I stayed with my mom because less supervision. I'm good at manipulating people. So I manipulated my mom and stayed with her because my dad was a hard ass and I didn't want to live with him and have his rules. So I stayed with my mom and she became a flight attendant. So in high school, party house on the weekend are pretty popular. So my house became the party house. And when I was a freshman, I instantly got in with all the seniors, started drinking, smoking weed, doing the bad shit. And then one night everything changed when I was 15 years old. I was my best friend, I'm not gonna mention him, from Ahwatukee, and we were the two popular kids in school, could do anything we wanted, and he asked me to kind of take one for the team, and he wanted me to hook up with a chick at my mom's house, and like literally 15 years old, sneaking out. So I tell him I'll take one for the team. We have 2 women over. They sneak out of the house like literally like we did when we were kids. Like her older brother dropped them off with a big ass bottle of Jack Daniels, snuck them through the bedroom window like midnight. They came over to my house. We hook up that Friday night. I lose my virginity at 15 years old. She goes back home. We do the exact same thing Saturday night. Polish off the second half of the bottle of Jack Daniels. She goes back home. Everything's fine. Sunday comes around. I'm like calling them to hang out, and they're like getting kind of short with me. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? This is weird as hell. And so I kind of hang up on them. I just like move on to my next stuff, and I go home that night. I walk in the front door, and my mom is on the phone with what turns out to be Ashley's mom, and the first thing I hear out of my mom's mouth is that my son raped your daughter. I instantly like grab the phone in my mom's hand, and I'm like, hang up the phone. I was like, what the fuck is that? She's like, it's Ashley Chance's mom. She said you had sex while she was sleeping. To this day, I don't know how it happened. The only thing that I can somewhat think of is that she got caught sneaking into her room and was hammered drunk, and it's the first thing she could think of, because she didn't want to press charges, wouldn't take a lie detector test. They did a rape kit on her, said that she had sex, but nothing was damaged. They asked me if I'll take a lie detector test. I agreed to everything. Nothing went away. Charges never got filed. But she went to school bragging about it like it was like a cool thing, and I went from being the most popular kid in school to like legit, the entire school was trying to get me. So my first day back at school, they come like during the middle of the day, like the principal called me to the principal's office, and they got police in there and everything, and they pretty much tell me they've gotten so many messages that something bad's gonna happen to me, they just like tell me you gotta leave school. And they're like, pretty much tell me you should just drop out, we don't know what to say, we can't protect you, but like the entire school is trying to jump your son, so I would just take him out of school and find another school for him. What do? I don't hang out with my athlete friends I'm playing sports with, I turn to drugs. I knew everybody from Ahwatukee, so I turned to the dudes that did drugs and stuff, and I'm hanging out with these dudes for the first time, and these dudes, I smoked crack, did meth, ecstasy, all this shit for my first time, like the same weekend, and this is just a regular weekend for these guys. Monday comes around, normally you go to school, we're still doing drugs. And now I'm just like, this is my new life, I don't fucking care about anything, I hate God, I hate everything, like, all I'm thinking of is how the hell did this happen to me? Like, I had the coolest life as a kid, and now my life's just ruined. Had nothing to live for. So we get into stealing shit, because when you're doing drugs, you don't have money. So we start stealing shit, robbing cars. I stole a Mercedes-Benz from the Mercedes-Benz dealership, brand new, back when Gone in 60 Seconds came out, because they said those cars were unstealable. And I was just like, shit, I'll go steal one of those fucking cars. I'll show you they ain't unstealable. So that landed me in jail. I learned low jack real quick when you try and steal a brand new Mercedes-Benz from the Mercedes-Benz dealership. The cops are on me in like literally 2 hours. So I go to jail for that, for stealing a car. I get out, I do 90 days in jail, and I get out. The problem when I was a kid is nothing bad really happened to me. Like when you're a juvenile, you can just do a bunch of dumbass shit and you never go to jail. Like I had my mom begging them sometimes to take me to jail, and they're like, we can't, he's a juvenile. So I steal a Mercedes, I go in there for 3 months, and then my brother comes around. This is spring break, which should have been my senior year of high school. And instead of doing parties at the house, now it just turned into me and my friends are locked in my room doing drugs, and my brother and his friends are drinking, partying. They come back one day and they tell me that they had just robbed this house from my old best friend that I was friends with that didn't stand up for me. And he was the richest dude in all of Ahwatukee. And I was like, shut up. I was like, where are they at? They're like, they're in Hawaii for a week. So 5 kids already burglarized the house. Me and my friends, 5 of us, go back and burglarize the house again. Cops get involved. I end up not saying anything. I thought I was a little tough-ass dude because I had just been in 90 days jail. And they said they're going to throw the book at me, and they did. They gave me 12 years in prison for a non-dangerous burglary charge at 18 years old. I did not look like this when I went to prison. I was 6 foot, 144 pounds with long blonde hair. I literally used to model. So it was not the best thing for me to hit prison being from Ahwatukee. And then when you do 12 years, you don't go to no little minimum security yards. You're going to the real yards with the real big boys, And like, I remember that first time walking that prison yard, and I was just like, what's crazy, everybody struggles about prison. They don't know, like, the toughest shit about prison is the stuff that no one thinks about. Like, when you're used to being pop and you like talking to people and socializing, and that's like networking, that now it's networking out here, but in prison it's not called that. Like, you're walking around the yard and you're like an absolute nobody. No one knows your fucking name. No one cares if you're there or gone the next day. And I was just like, how the hell am I going to do my life like this? I got 12 years to do like this. No one even knows I'm here or could care less if I'm here. And I always heard about these heart checks, right? So luckily I used to box. And they told me about these heart checks where like they'll literally just try and fuck with you just to see if you're tough enough to stand up for yourself. I had heard about that, so I was like, all right, I'm just going to make some little issue with somebody myself so I can just show these dudes at least I can fight. So I ended up picking a fight with the dude that ran my building, who's legit twice my size. When you get to prison, let's see if anybody knows this. Do you know why they call it a sucker punch?
You're a sucker to get punched.
There you go, Todd Pope. So they tell you that when you get to prison. Do you know why they call it a sucker punch? They say because you're the sucker if you get punched. He's like, so if you even think you're going to get into it with anybody, you just take off on them. And I'm like, this is the first thing I get when I'm like 18 years old. I was like, holy shit, all right, whatever. So when I go to fight this dude, he says some stupid ass shit to me and goes to take the little chew out of his mouth and says some smart ass shit. I'm on top of him, just beat the brakes off this dude. They lock us down. The next morning I come out to chow. Now all these OGs are like, yo, youngster, what's up? I heard what you did. And now everybody wants to talk to me. So I'm like, all right, shit's clicking for me now. Because I had nothing to strive for. I didn't strive to be good or change my life. Like I looked at the 12 years like it was a life sentence. And all I was going to do was try and maximize my sentence and make a name for myself. I was from Ahwatukee, so I always had to overcompensate. There's straight gangbangers in there, like straight killers in there, And I was just like, I'm literally from Ahwatukee. So I always overcompensated and tried to act more gangster. And the shittiest part about it is what I strive for instead of like changing my life and getting out of prison, the only thing I strive for in there was to make a name for myself so that when cops, like literally when I would hit a yard, cops would already know about it and they would be scared for me to hit that yard. Because like I remember when I was there in these OGs, like, DJ, you'd be talking to these cops, they're like, oh shit, so-and-so, Myeroff's hitting the yard. The cops would be talking about it. And I was like, dude, I just want to be like that. When fucking I'm hitting the yard, cops are scared that I'm hitting that fucking yard. And that's what I strive for. And 23 years old, I ran my first 4-yard. And my wife's right here, so earmuffs here, but I was in a full-on relationship with a corrections officer, as illegal as it gets, and running a 4-yard, 23 years old, did not care about shit, getting involved with drugs. I had never touched heroin before, and they tell you this when you go to prison, like heroin is everywhere. So when you go on a 4-yard, there's 100 cells per building. I would say 92 or 94 of those people shoot heroin, like no joke. It's probably a handful of people that don't, if anything, on a 4-yard. And so it's a rarity if you don't slam dope. And I got introduced to needles and I started slamming dope, and then it just ruin. I would go like, if I was in lockdown, I would get sober up and I'd be 230, 240. And I'd go back to the yard and I'd be strung out on drugs and I'd go back down to 170 or 180. And that was like literally my entire prison sentence. I'd go to the yard for a few months and go back to the hole. So it kind of clicked for me in the end, I thought, when I'm about a year and a half from getting out and I have this horrible abscess in my arm from slamming dope. Like how you see I got a big slit there in my arm. And my arm was like literally twice the size. They take me to medical. I go to the hospital, and the hospital when you're in prison ain't like the hospital out here. They literally lock you in a room, they deadbolt the door, and they cuff your ankles to the bed and your other ankle to the other bed, and they give you a dish. Like you don't have a TV in there, nothing. They literally deadbolt the door locked in there, so you don't even move from that bed. I was in there for 6 days straight. Luckily, they saved my arm. I get back to the medical at the yard. The first thing the doctor says to me, when you're in drugs, you just play shit off like it's not as bad as it is. Like you just make excuses to keep using drugs and like justifying and all that kind of bullshit, if anybody knows that. So I'm like, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And the doctor tells me, he's like, damn, you got your arm. And I was like, why the hell you say it like that? He's like, I thought for sure you were gonna have one arm next time I saw you. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, can you imagine doing 12 years in prison and getting out and losing your arm like a year before you got out? Because all your like working out, golfing, all that shit's gone. So I'm like, all right, I'm done getting high. I'm done using drugs. The second I get back to that run, an hour later, get high. Same shit. I don't stop. Keep using drugs there, and then my last year, I ended up going to the hole turned out to be an investigation for attempted murder. Some youngsters literally went to kill this dude. Like, I'm not trying to be graphic, but like slit his throat, stabbed his eyes out. They take me to the hole for that, and they literally tell me I'm like 9 or 10 months to the gate, and they're like, you just fucked up your release, you're not going home. We didn't know if the dude was gonna die, I thought he was dying. The dude ends up living. I go to solitary confinement for my last like 10 months in prison. And no joke, I got out of solitary confinement under investigation for an attempted murder, 12 years in prison. My last 10 months, thank God, that's like literally what sobered me up though. Because I went to the hole at like probably, you know, Robbie, it was like 175 pounds or something like that, strung out. So I get out of prison weighing 264. Now I got 10 months sober. But I still have no fucking plan of what I'm gonna do when I get out. Like I hadn't even thought about what I was gonna do for work. I just thought like, if I figured it out and made something of myself, it was a minimum wage job doing construction, being sober, at least hanging out with some old white dudes that are boring as fuck, but at least I'm sober, I'm not in prison. That's like literally what I strive for, and that's what I thought like the epitome of success in my case was. You know those old grumpy ass white dudes in AA. Anyway, so I get out of prison, and all of the bitterness and like anger and everything I had for getting so much prison time and like the animosity I had towards God and everything, it just literally went away. The problem with me though is I had never been to a bar, I'd never been to a club, never been on a date, so I'm 30 years old. I didn't get out of prison until I turned 30 years old, and then a month later I got out of prison. So I can't justify with being an alcoholic because I never drank really, you know, like I was a kid when I went away. So I'm drinking, going to bars and stuff, not doing drugs, using women, just doing the whole thing for the first 6 months out. I get an assault case from knocking a dude out, blacked out at a bar. And then one day, this is when everything changed. It's a Friday afternoon. We were drinking at a buddy's birthday party. It was literally daytime still, I remember. And I remember doing a shot of Rumplemints. We're at Hobnob Bar right down there in Chandler. Last thing I remember was doing a shot of Rumplemints, and I wake up in an ambulance. And I remember telling the guy, I was like, what the fuck am I doing in here? I thought maybe I got in a fight, but I was like, if I got in a fight, the other guy should be in the ambulance, and I should be out there in handcuffs, so I didn't know what the hell was going on. And the dude tells me, you overdosed. And I literally told him, I was like, I don't even use drugs anymore. He's like, well, you did today. I was like, oh my God. So I went from, and I'm not even joking, I wasn't even happy I survived. I was mad as fuck that I survived. Like, I was like, God, why couldn't I have just died and just all the suffering and pain been over with? You know, like I felt like I'd been fighting my whole fucking life. I was legit done fighting. I was tapped out. You know, like the 12 years in prison did it to me. The fact that I used drugs still and could not get over my drug problem when I got out, I was done, man. Like literally throwing the towel. And then on top of that, I have survivor's remorse. So I'm like, why the fuck would a drug addict like me survive some shit like that? And there's all kind of good people dying every day. You know, I literally had survivor's remorse from that stuff. And that was hard to get over too. So next thing I remember, I'm in this hospital bed, and I hear my little brother in the hallway, and he's on the phone with my dad. My dad's like Mr. Sober, like 20-some years sober, lives in South Dakota. So think of me, now this 30-year-old prison shot caller, and I'm like yelling at my brother, like, why the fuck you calling dad? I like yell at him in the hallway. And he's like, do you even know what happened? I was like, I have no idea what happened. They told me I overdosed. So when they found me, I was full on dead. No heartbeat, no nothing. By the time they got me back to the hospital, my heart was only beating 6 beats a minute. The doctor said I'm the only person to ever survive in that condition. And I found this afterwards. This is kind of what changed my whole outlook on life and like thought and my mission now. So when I got saved by an ex-girlfriend's little sister. And she went to go tanning. She said she pulled in the tanning bed salon place, she parked her car, she got out of her car, she even walked up to the door. She said the second she put her hand on that door to go in the tanning salon, something told her to go home. She took her hand off the door and got back in her car and went home. She's the one that found me with no heartbeat. If she walks in that salon place and takes another 2 or 3 seconds, I'm probably gone. You can't stay without a heartbeat for too long. God saved my life that day to do this mission and help you guys.
Hell yeah!
And then when you find God and you find your purpose, like, your whole life fucking makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, I went from being so bitter and so angry and thought that God fucking ruined my life and everything. And like, all I was doing was, he was testing me so I can help you guys and use my message to help other people now. Because like, now when I'm working with people and they think they got it bad in their life and they tell me some little sob story, I'm like, literally can give them like a quarter of my story. And I'm like, dude, do you really think you got it bad? And they're like, fuck, no, I don't. So now I use my story to help people. So I go out there to South Dakota. I spend like 2 weeks with my dad. I get sober, I come out here, I'm gonna try and sell cars. You know, everybody told me I should sell shit. I've always been talking to people, networking, I like talking. So I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go try and sell some cars. I go get hired at Marquia. My only job I've ever worked, I'm 31 years old now. And I mean, picture this, I'm a 31-year-old like prison shocker, like running like maximum security prison yards, and I'm having to ask my dad to buy me dress shirts and some khakis so I can go sell cars, because I don't even have money for clothes. So he buys me 5 dress shirts at Kohl's that we got on sale, and like 3 pairs of khakis, and I had to pay him back when I got my first check. I go to Marquia, and I sit in my first sales meeting, and the way they recruited me to hire, they said there was a woman there that just made 11 grand selling cars. And I'm like, there's a woman there that made 11 grand selling cars. Shout out to Marcella Moraga. But I was like, all right, no offense to women in this room. I'm like, if there's a woman that can make 11 grand selling cars, I'm hired. Let's go do it. So I go there, and no joke, the first sales meeting I sit in, she wins salesperson of the month and sells like 24 cars, made like 12 G's. Right after that meeting, I was like, yo, I'll bet you $100 I beat you next month. And keep in mind, I've never sold a car, never even talked to a customer yet or anything. She's like, I'd calm down a little, dude. Like, what are you talking about or something like that? I was like, well, then it should be free, easy $100 for you then, right? So we bet $100. My first month ever selling cars. I make 10 grand, sell 21 cars. I'm in sales for 5 months. I go to being a sales manager. And the reason, so I'm the next 3 promotions at this dealership. Before it's all said and done, I'm still on parole, and I'm pulling up in a brand new Raptor. I have my own office as a finance manager. I'm making 250 grand a year, like legit with an 8th grade education. Nobody in my fucking family is successful on either side of my family. So I start making some money there selling cars now. And the reason I got promoted so many times is because I sat in a fucking prison cell for 12 years. Like, I'm a fucking hustler. Like, while all these other sales guys are sitting there playing on their phones and trying to hack people on deals and shit like that and just being little nitpickers, I just did the work. No matter what was in front of me, I did the work. I didn't sit down. I didn't take breaks. If someone needed me to close a deal for another team, I wouldn't close the deal for the other team. You just did whatever it takes. And like I said, it's not a coincidence that I got promoted 3 times in a row. So now I got my own fucking office as a finance manager. 2.5, 3 years out of prison, legit making 350 grand a year. Do that for a few years, sober the entire time. Right now, on July 30th, I will celebrate 7 years sober now.
Hell yeah!
And you know, like I bought the cars. You know, I bought 12 cars when I was working there. Bought a couple houses, and like, the money makes you happy for a period of time. You know what I'm saying? But money does not make you happy. Money makes it easier to help people, and you have to have money to help people. But money does not make you happy. So I'm sitting there one day, and it's like God literally just telling me to quit my job. Like literally one random day, I was just like, dude, I got to get out of here. I'm done with this shit. I call my GM in the office. We literally talked for an hour and a half, and no joke, cry our eyes out. He's the only guy that ever hired me, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna go try something on my own. I saw Instagram, bro. I saw enough dudes hustling, making money on Instagram. I was like, there's no fucking way these dudes will out-hustle me, bro. Like, straight up. So I walked out of my job, not even a plan of what I was gonna do. I just saved up a bunch of money, and I was like, I'm just gonna figure this shit out like everybody else did. So 2 years ago, I decided to quit my job. I had 400 followers, had no idea what I was gonna even do. Didn't even know I was gonna do a podcast. Then Vice does a whole TV show on me, so I was on season 2, episode 5. I was a teenage felon on Vice TV. Decided to walk out of there. I do the podcast now. Now my podcast is in 350 prisons across the whole country. Every county jail in Arizona, every inmate can not only listen to my podcast, but watch my podcast. I developed prison curriculum now that I'm gonna be selling to states and governments. I made my entire money off sales. Sales will change your life, and the greatest thing about sales, if you have confidence, you can sell anything to anybody. Like when I was a finance manager, I got good at my job, and if anybody does this, they know, like, I would second guess, I'd prejudge every customer, you know what I'm saying? So if I got some guy that was like a 60-month thing at a 1.99 rate, I'm like, oh, this dude ain't buying shit. And I would literally kick him out of office, not even sell him stuff. And the other guy, if I told myself I was gonna sell him everything, I sold him everything. It's like literally, so what you tell yourself is what happens in your life. I learned that in maximum security prison. You know, you have thousands of conversations in your head daily. That's what runs your life. You know what I'm saying? Like, focus on those conversations. Make sure they're positive conversations, because you can literally rewire your brain to do anything you want. Whatever you tell your brain to do is what you're gonna do. And if you tell yourself you can do something, you can do it. If you tell yourself you can't do it. The last thing I wanna say is like this. Life is all about perspective here. everybody should be grateful that they had another day. The biggest, and this might get a little grab for you guys, but this is legit what helped me out during the worst times of my time in prison. And it's all about perspective. So I had to like put myself with another person that was struggling worse than me to like know how they got through it. I put myself in prison. I had no reason to bitch and cry about what I did. It was all my fault. I put myself in there. I deserve to go to prison. I'm not even saying anything other than that. I had to use, I don't know if you guys remember the J.C. Dugard story with that little girl that got held hostage for like 18 years or something like that. It's the most brutal shit I ever seen. I happened to have that book when I'm sitting in solitary confinement one day. And that little girl was the only girl that I could honestly picture that had a worse life than me. And I'm like, if this little girl can stay tied up and do all this shit, like how can I bitch about being in some solitary confinement cell? So use that to your benefit now. Like life is all about perspective. If you were struggling to get through a certain time and you got through it, go back to that time where you pushed yourself through something you didn't think you could do it. The last thing I'll say is this. Your life is what you make it. We can all do anything we want in this world. I'm proof that. Like, I had no reason to be here. And now I say this, I'm playing with house money. I should have been dead 10 times. I should still be in prison. I should have never got out of prison. God saved my life and changed my life just so I can help you guys. And I hope you guys got something out of this message today, man. I'll be here all day if you guys want to hear something. So thank you guys for listening to me.
Make some noise for Chappy!
Yo, 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 can I get everybody's attention one time? Yo, yo. One last thing I forgot to mention. So as I said, I do life coaching. I'm just a fan of all you guys taking your time out at the work and doing all this stuff. So if anybody signs up for my coaching through Sunday, they type in Sales Summit, they're getting an additional 25% off all my coaching through Sunday. You have to type in Sales Summit, but that could save you a few $1,000s off my coaching. So there we go, baby. 25% off Sales Summit 25 is the code.